In this training video, I want to go over doing an integration with ServiceNow, doing some complex searches that involve multiple tables. So before I do that, let me set up an example requested item. This is a default requested item that comes in the Madrid test database, and I'm going to configure it slightly and add another field for searching. Going to add in the configuration item, and you can see it's from the CMDB CI table here. I'll just mark it as mandatory, and then I will save this, return to my form, reload the form. I'm going to give it 3D pinball as the configuration item, and I will update. Again, once I've got it saved, now I have a configuration item. I also know that this particular item has an owner of, opened by of the admin user. If I go into security flow now, I want to be able to find this item. I've set up two pathways here for how to find that request item. The first one is relatively simple. I'm going to say I'm looking for a username of admin, that's the owner, and the config item of 3D pinball. In this find requested item search, it's configured to search the requested item table. There's a drop down here that is preceded with various task tables, but you can type in any table name that you want if you don't want to use the preceded list, and I'll illustrate that in a bit. But it's going to search for opened by username, and it's going to be set to the payload username, and it's also going to search for that CMDB CI name, and that name is going to be the config item. So this allows us to dynamically find items based on messages traversing through a flow. If I now inject, I should get a response back. And if I look at that particular response, the search returned the item 1 in the request item table. And that's a nice way to find items by using link fields in your search results. So the way that you can look at this is, here's the CMDB CI. I know the field name that I want to search on is name, but the results typically will just give you a link and the sysid to search on. And the same thing for opened by and username. The opened by field here is also a link to the sys user, and it's the sysid here. Now, I've done this in a single query, but let's say you want information from those subtables as well. There's another way that we can do this search, and we can inject the same message. This message format doesn't matter, it's totally up to you. This is the payload of the message that's traversing the flow. In this example, I've set up the username and the config item in this format. The first step is we're going to search for the property username in the sysuser table. So this table name is not defined here. I just typed it in, and I want to do a find, and I'm saying based on the value of payload username, set it, do the field search on username. In the next step, we're just making sure that we actually found a result. If we found a result, we then end up saving that user sysid into our message from the response under sysid. I'll just stretch this out a little bit so it's more readable. And then we delete the response from ServiceNow. However, if I wanted to save additional data from the ServiceNow response, I could actually do something like this first instruction, where I saved off some data into a spot in the payload. The next step is we're also going to find the config item information, and in this case we're searching the CMDB CI table, doing a find. We're looking for the name based on this payload config item. If we find it, this process is basically saying, let's see if we got a result set that actually has data in it. And then we'll do the same thing. We will save off the config item sysid. Previously we'd saved off the username sysid, and then we delete the ServiceNow payload that was there. But if we wanted to save additional data, we could do that. And the final request is doing a search of opened by and that CMDB CI field. But in this case, we don't have to specify a subfield the way we did in the original example. We're just saying we're looking for this sysid, and that we just supply both sysids to these fields. Now, if I just inject here, it'll do this search, this search, this search, and we should end up with the same result, which is the request item 001 being found. And there it is, request item 001. So this way you can chain searches together. Additionally, with this result, if I wanted to find additional information, if I wanted to, for example, get this metadata that's associated with this request item, we could add in an additional search based on looking for this item, this sccat item with this sysid. And if we just did an additional query and chained it after this point, we could find that additional data and pull it into the system. This flow is available as an import from our library, and if you just do a search for ServiceNow here, you'll find the ServiceNow flow for a sample test. Thank you.